Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be talking about Stephen King's 2012 novel, The Wind Through the Keyhole, a Dark Tower novel. We will show you the points to look for when trying to identify first US and first UK editions of the book, as well as provide some thoughts on the work itself. So the first US trade hardcover edition of The Wind Through the Keyhole was published by Scribner. Has this quite lovely wraparound dust jacket artwork, which I really like. It's really nice. Inside the jacket, look for a price of $27. If your jacket is not priced, it is most likely a book club edition of some type. And on the copyright page, look for the handy dandy Scribner number line that includes the number 1. Underneath the jacket, black all around. There is sort of a seam here. It's like what would have been a cloth binding back in the Viking days, and it's just paper. There is the spine. Pretty basic looking book, but not a comment on the quality of the work inside, just a comment on the design itself. So that is the first US trade hardcover of The Wind Through the Keyhole. I'm going to turn it over to Noah to take a look at the first UK trade hardcover.
All right, and now we have the trade hardcover version. It's got the same jacket as the limited that we just looked at. It's got the same price on the jacket, so the jacket is the same. So I was correct before. $19.99 UK was the cost of the trade edition. Jacket is identical. The book binding is identical to the limited. The difference here is that we've got plain orange end papers instead of the illustrated end papers that came with the limited. And of course, there's no limitation page or full color frontispiece in this edition. If you want to check to see if your copy is a first printing, you are looking for the standalone number 1 there on the copyright page that indicates first printing. And the book does have the interior black and white illustrations throughout. Otherwise, that's about it. So I don't have much else to say about this book. So that's the British hardcover.
So The Wind Through the Keyhole was one of the last Stephen King books that I completed on my trip through all of his works. I listened to it in the last couple of years. I think I started it at one point back right after it first came out, and I just couldn't get into it for some reason, and I set it aside. I went back, and I have now listened to it twice, both just as a general, oh, I need to pick that up on my way through all of his works, and then again on my return trip to the Dark Tower. And I liked it very much both times. It is read by Stephen King in the audiobook, which sometimes I kind of roll my eyes and think, oh, brother, here we go. He doesn't have the best voice for audiobook reading. He doesn't necessarily perform. It is more of a reading. But the saving grace for Stephen King reading his own work in audio is that nobody knows the characters or the story better than him. So it's just fine. It's an acquired taste, like 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 mezcal or black coffee. It's an acquired taste, but then once you acquire it, even if you don't love it, it's more than serviceable. Anyway, The Wind Through the Keyhole, of course, is considered Dark Tower book 4.5, and almost a decade after the publication of the last book in the series, book 7, we get this sort of standalone new Dark Tower novel, which is really exciting. I remember being excited about it back in the day, and then proceeded to just not read it or listen to it for a decade after it first came out. And in retrospect, I have no idea why I couldn't get into it. I have no idea what I was thinking, what the heck was wrong with me, because now I like it just fine. So it doesn't, obviously there are gaps, especially with the first several books in the series. There can be gaps of a period of time or distance or whatever. And between book 4 and book 5 of the series, there is some indeterminate time, distance, space, whatever, that is covered as we meet up with Roland and his quartet again at the beginning of book 5. So book 4.5, The Wind Through the Keyhole, has quite a bit of just unknown real estate to slot itself into, and it does that really well. So basically it's a Russian nesting doll structure, which is really, really cool and interesting. So the main wraparound story does include Roland and the quartet, and they're making their way on their journey, and they have to take shelter. A very, very exciting set piece of them trying to outrun this storm and get safely into shelter, to stay safe from this just horrible, devastating, wintry nightmare storm called the Stark Blast. And while they are sheltering, Roland tells them a story. And within the story, there is another story. And it has been a little bit since I've read this. There may even be another story still. That so the characters, Roland tells a story, and then the characters in the story that Roland tells tell a story, and then so on and so forth. And it's just fascinating, and it digs deeper and deeper and deeper, and then finally kind of comes back to the surface and to the present day, and successfully wraps the story, and they progress on their path, which we pick up with them again. We pick them up again in book 5, Wolves of the Calla. But the stories within the stories, the first story takes place shortly after the events of book 4, which is another reason that Wind Through the Keyhole fits in really well between books 4 and 5. At some point after the adventures or misadventures in Magus, their Roland's father sends him on another journey, and so we get to learn more about Roland as a young man, and the way he leads, the way he follows, the way he interacts with other gunslingers of his age, the way he interacts with townspeople and villagers along the way he commands respect. Um, it's not nearly as in depth or lengthy of a flashback as what takes place in book 4, but it's a good story all in its own. And in the course of that story, Roland tells another story to another young man who's significantly younger than Roland, truly a child, to try to calm them and help them get through another stormy night, although it's more of a dust storm or sandstorm as opposed to a winter stark blast. And then that story, we it's another tale of the Dark Man, another tale of Randall Flagg, or Martin, the Man in Black, who we come to know and loathe throughout multiple Stephen King works. And in that story, he is a tax collector who strikes an incredible deal with a young man and reveals a lot of truth, and kind of not dissimilar to how he tempted Roland and sort of forced Roland's hand, to take his manhood test before he was truly ready, even though he ends up passing, of course. He shows this young man in this story some things that he needs to see, but that he's not quite ready to handle, sort of trusting that it will force him into some errors. And whereas Roland was truly an enemy of Walter, and I think could have, Walter was more interested in getting him out of the way for the benefit of his future plans and all the things that he was going to try to accomplish, in Midworld and all of that. His The way he screws around with the young man in the story within a story seems more just like because he wants to, because he's really mean, because he's an asshole. He this kid is nowhere near the caliber of Roland, but he's still a good kid, a good young man, and he doesn't deserve what befalls him. But anyway, has this tremendous adventure. That story is a quality story in its own right, and then we pull up another layer, and we're back with the young Roland, and then that story is resolved, which involves a skinwalker, a shapeshifter. It's all very exciting. Plenty of gruesome action scenes, which are classic Stephen King. And then we rise up again from that story into the present day after the Stark Blast has passed and the quartet is able to once again make their way. So in book 4 and book 4.5, they both feature Roland telling lengthy stories of his past. Book 4.5 is not required reading to truly understand the Dark Tower series, but it adds another layer of nuance, another layer of history to Roland's backstory, which only I think helps to make the entire experience richer. But anyway, I'll be talking more about the Wind Through the Keyhole in another video related to my return trip to the Dark Tower. But for this video, that is the first trade edition of the Wind Through the Keyhole in the US and UK editions, and just some brief thoughts on the work itself. Thanks as always to my friend Noah for your help in producing the content to make these videos possible. Thanks as well to you, the viewers, the subscribers who show your support of the channel, leave your comments. I always like to read them. And if I possibly can, I respond. Maybe not right away, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon I will respond. So anyway, thank you again. Wherever you are, take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you later. Bye.